Bosses feasted as patients suffered. Scathing headline there against the NHIF. The genesis of this whole scheme that developed within the NHIF, Web Tribe Limited, trading as JamboPay, was picked to install an internally managed system which would have cost between 400 million and 600 million shillings. But the contract it signed was commission-based and earned it close to $1 billion shillings. Now, the scheme, the DPP is convinced NHIF opted for more expensive leasing arrangement to perpetrate and camouflage fraud. CEO Geoffrey Mwangi and his finance director Wilbert Kurgat have been given or taken to court for obstructing justice. Now, the denial, JamboPay CEO Danson Muchemi says there has been no loss of funds through the electronic transaction switch services as we provide to the NHIF. So questions, very strong worded questions here on the front page of The Nation, saying how many children would 1 billion shillings have bought life-saving treatment for, and how many expecting mothers and their babies would have lived if the insurer had extended help rather than waste funds. So very strong allegations. Let me just first read the first paragraph here. When the NHIF floated a tender for a revenue management system, many hoped that the leakages that had plagued the insurer's ability to deliver seamless services to members would have been sealed. That was not the case. Internal documents, however, show that there was the beginning of what appears to have been a scheme to siphon more than $1 billion shillings from the health insurer, as the system was advertised for was not delivered, despite 7 bidders being led on to the end of a dud procurement process by the NHIF management. This is not new to the NHIF. We've heard of so many scandals even this year concerning siphoning of funds, this being the latest. Honorable Kirwa, what do you make of it?
Well, I think issues of corruption are soon going to make us numb. Yeah. And that will be a very dangerous situation, where you just read and you say, okay, who is not there? Yeah. In fact, the other day, I got it on social media, more than 100 corruption cases that have happened in the last 4 years or so. And at times you say, okay, is it true? Is it real? Are the resources really being lost in these particular scandals, or is it that people are making up stories? Now, what worries me is that Kenyans will get tired about this. And that's why we still urge the DPP and even the government system that, yes, let us get 1 or 2 convictions. But more important is that let us get to the depth of this thing, because I don't think Kenyans have decided to be corrupt and to have rapacious appetite for money, regardless of the law. I think there must be, this must be a syndicate, and there must be the chief priest organizing these scandals. And until we deal with that, we are just glossing over issues. Because, you know, at every termite mold, unless you go to the queen and you remove the queen and destroy it, the termite mold will continue, whether you use herbicides, whether you use fungicides, or whatever it is, it will continue. I think there is a termite mold that the chief priest of corruption has not been apprehended, or people have not gotten to him. And Kenyans know, but we choose just to gloss over issues and pretend everything is well. It cannot be every parastatal, whether it is pipeline, whether it is Kenya Power, whether it is NHIF, whether it is the Kenyatta National Hospital, there is always a scandal. And when you go to the bottom of this scandal, there are networks that are known to be siphoning money from these institutions. And to who? Yeah. That is a question.
And Honorable Wangari, I mean, Honorable Kira is right in terms of this will happen in another parastatal, some other government agency. We've seen it so many times. Yeah. The question is, when does this stop? Yeah. The people who are most affected, the Wananchi, are most quiet when this happens, you know. So when do we see a stop to such?
I think I agree with Honorable Kiro, because it also gets to somewhere and you're like, every time, like you just said, it's not new. I mean, we've seen it before. Right. And if you check yesterday, there is some news that really captured the media. The launch of the mother-child hospital in Makueni. The cost of that hospital is 135 million only. You know, only. Yeah. if you look at, recently we were discussing the KU state-of-the-art hospital with 30 ICU bed capacity that needs just a mere 600 million to be able to operate. I mean, we've seen these scandals from KNH, from KEMSA, from NHIF, and I think what we've lost more is actually even the morality, even godliness. I mean, we steal from the sick. It is that simple. You steal from the sick and people who are dying. Because I will tell you, in my constituency, I think every time there's a cry of help in terms of people who have been riddled with medical bills.
Right.
There was a story in the media for a young man who had been done his KCSE exam from the hospital, suffering from leukemia. We can't bury him because he still needs 800,000. From my constituency, it is that heartbreaking, and until it gets to that point that you actually interact with it, it may just be newspapers that people say they will wrap the meat tomorrow and that will be it. But I think if you look at NHIF, and I think it was just meant to explode, it's just its time, because it has been there. People have been talking about it, but nobody has really put their fingers on it. And my worry in this case, Victoria, right now is the charges that have been preferred against the bosses. If you look at the charge sheet, it's about just obstruction because you sent a text and say don't give audit papers, and that is how we lose it. We had it with the Lands Ministry, the other parliament, and the charges that were preferred were similar. Obstruction of justice. In the end, it goes away. So we don't get to the bottom of it. And I really hope that the renewed hope that we have with the DPP and the vigor he has to investigate DCJ, this is more criminal. If you ask me, this is crazy because you're stealing from the sick. I hope we can be able to get to the bottom of it. But more importantly is that, like Honorable Kirwa says, that we don't just make it a news item for a few days and it disappears. I mean, today we are trying to implement, or the president and the team is trying to implement universal health care.
Exactly.
We are talking of 4 pilot counties that are supposed to actually have it launched. But we really don't know exactly what are we launching. Is it NHIF or is it, what is it? We are talking medical equipment. If you look at the news, it's the same thing. This medical equipment, we had the same when I was in the Senate, in the 11th Parliament. We debated, we knew there is a loophole. Was it sealed that time? No. We keep churning reports that end up in some folder somewhere or in some cabinet. We must see action, and really the action has to be the DCI, the DPP to have enough evidence, and the charges that are preferred. Don't publicize, then make them frivolous, because otherwise people will lose confidence in terms of this fight. And at the end of the day, we still have billions of cash stashed even outside the country. How much has come back? The assets recovery, which is a whole parastatal, how much has come back? Because if you ask me, the 400, we lose 400 billion a year that is not accounted for. And parastatals have become the new milking cows, you know, the new cows to milk for cash. If you look at KPC, if you look at KPL, there is a scandal every day. And I think, and when I see the president getting frustrated, the one thing he must get right is actually deal with the corruption cartels. Otherwise, it will destroy his legacy in such a major way that it won't be able to mend at all.